Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We start our meeting with an invocation, which we observe by a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic from which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Corliss.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Nash. Stead.
Here.
Willits. 4 present, 2 absent.
And now we've got minutes for approval.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the minutes from the strategic planning session of February 24th, 2026, and the council regular day minutes from February 24th, 2026. I second the motion.
Motion and second, clerk?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And then, Madam Mayor, before we move on, I wanted to make a motion to amend the agenda by moving what is currently on the consent agenda under other planning business number 1, which is CAR 22-48 and CPA 22-23 revised findings, and place them instead as item number 4 under special business to be taken up in the order of the amended agenda. Second the motion.
We have motion and second, clerk?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great, thanks. First off, we have the appointment of Nathan Aronson. Nathan is here. Hi, welcome to the Design Review Commission for a 4-year term that ends March 30th.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent to appoint Nathan Aronson to the Design Review Commission for a 4-year term ending March 3rd, 2030.
Without objection. Nathan, I really appreciate your willingness to serve. Thanks for stepping up. You're welcome to say something if you'd like. Perfect. You still have to walk up here because I'm going to hand you this with a letter in it. But you don't have to say anything. Really appreciate the time you're going to put into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
And next up, we have Mitch Butt. Mitch. Oh, there you are. Sorry, I didn't see you behind Deb. You're doing double duty, so appreciate your willingness to serve. This is an appointment of Mitch to the Historic Preservation Committee for a 3-year term.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent to appoint Mitch Butt to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term ending March 3rd, 2029.
Without objection. Thank you, Mitch. You're welcome to say something as well if you'd like. And I've got, because you already have the portfolio since you're on another commission for us, I just have a letter I'd love to send you home with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, council's used to hearing me say this at this point, but I just want to thank both Nathan and Mitch for your service on these committees. These are volunteer committees. They aren't something, get paid for. There's no fanfare. There's usually no big, huge celebrations. It's simply people who are trying to volunteer some of their expertise to the city so that we can make better decisions. And they are decisions that we take really seriously here on council. And we take your expertise in these areas seriously as well, because they may be, things that we don't know. So I appreciate your time. Good luck in the next meetings, and thanks for your service to the city.
Thank you both. And you're welcome to stay. You've got a lot of committee meetings in your life ahead of you. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go, whatever you'd like. But thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it. And now I'm going to move into David Mosier. Oh, you're already there. Great. The CUP 2516 mediation request.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, the applicant requests mediation in regards to the city council decision to deny the appeal and uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial of the conditional use modification CUP 25-0016. In summary, This was an appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission's denial of a conditional use modification to reduce the density of an approved plan unit development by converting 4 townhome lots into 2 detached single-family lots for a property that is generally located at 655 West Parkside View Lane. The item is before the council. Thank you.
Is that
Madam
it?
Mayor, oh,
Oh, I didn't know if he was done or not. I thought there was more. No.
Are you done?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I am done.
Oh, yeah, great.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question for staff.
Yes.
Just because I've seen lots of different mediation requests before. Most of the time, the mediation requests are usually between a developer and a neighborhood, who are trying to reconcile, some sort of challenge. In this situation, we don't have a neighborhood, who's standing against this. Who's the mediation between?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I guess the mediation between the applicant and the city in this case regarding the application and the decision.
And have we done that before? I can't remember a time that we have. So I'm just trying to understand a little bit more of what that would look like.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, you are correct. Usually it is between a mediation between like a neighborhood and an applicant or something of that nature. And I'm not aware of this particular type of mediation happening before. The only 2 that I can think of will be like Prominence up in the Northwest or maybe Interfaith Sanctuary. Those are the only 2 to come to mind, but they were the case or the situation that you described earlier.
Great, thank you.
Anything further? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I want to move to grant the mediation request for CP 25-16.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Madam Mayor, as the motion maker, I'll just speak that I always want us to find ground with property owners under the code with our, direction from council towards values, city values and things like that. And if this can get us closer to that, then I support the effort.
I
Madam
think
Mayor.
Jordan's going to add something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be supporting the motion. I think I've been pretty clear about in this application, in our public hearing, about the importance of these lots containing the density that they're committed to at this time. And so I think that being able to have a mediation session to be able to talk about that a little bit further would make sense for the applicant and for our city.
Yeah, and then Mary, this is sort of a new one to me, just because we usually have 2 different groups that are going to mediation. I've voted no on this one a couple of times now. I will vote in favor of this one. I think sometimes on council, the way that these public processes work, sometimes they work really well. Sometimes they don't really lend well for dialogue and trying to understand, what's going on. To me, there must be something going on with this application because it's come in front of us now, 3 different times. And so there's some sort of miscommunication that I'm not quite understanding. And I'm trying to figure out a little bit more about what that miscommunication is. So we can have a chance to go to mediation and figure out where there's a disconnect between what the developer's trying to say and what we're hearing and the reasoning behind it. Then I don't see anything bad that could come from that. And so I'm happy to support the motion.
Great. Well, before the clerk calls the roll, I won't be voting on this, but I'm glad that we're headed in this direction. Believe that having a deeper conversation about both the city's needs and the applicant's needs should help us get to resolution. So thanks, clerk.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Alrighty. Oh, yeah, I was about to forget number 4. Okay, we've got, I can't remember the number, revised findings.
Of CAR 22-48 and CPA 22-3.
Looks like Jesse's coming up to join us.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. This item may look familiar. It was last before you in June of 2025 as CPA 22-3 and CAR 22-48. This is a remnant application submitted in 2022 under the Legacy Zoning Code and is being reviewed under those code standards. And it is for a comprehensive plan, map amendment to change the land use designation of approximately 26 acres from industrial to commercial, an annexation of 41 acres with a zoning designation of C2DDA for approximately 26 acres and M1DDA for approximately 14.7 acres, a rezone of approximately 19.6 acres from C1 DDA to M1 DDA, and a modification to an existing development agreement, all generally located at 6310 Orchard Street. Again, this may look familiar. It was before you in June 3rd, 2025. And at that point in time, council had expressed concerns with the size of a future fire station parcel and the funding mechanism for that future fire station. And after discussion, the council sent staff and the applicant to revise the development agreement in order to determine the appropriate size for a fire station site and to develop a way to fund the fire impact fees through a prepayment method. Since then, staff has worked with the applicant, the fire department, and finance department to identify the 2.5 acre fire station site that will be dedicated prior to proceeding beyond the first phase of a subsequent subdivision, and also a way to collect the $633,000 upfront in fire impact fees with a reimbursement method that has been created in order to finalize that as development happens in this area. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the modified development agreement, conditions of approval, and reason for recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jesse? All right, thank you. Take a
Thanks.
motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the revised findings for CAR 22-48 and CPA 22-3.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and second discussion.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. Jesse, thank you so much for bringing this back before us. And I really appreciate you and your team's working with the applicant on this, and also for finding a solution with the costs there for finding sites for fire station. And we need to be creative and work with our partners. This is a great help to get us started to filling that role. So appreciate you doing the work and appreciate the developer for coming to the table as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Now we will move to the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Next up, we've got an ordinance on first reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the first reading be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD-6-26, an ordinance CAR 25-5 for properties located at 7607, 7675, 7710, 7767, 7794, 7805, 7840, and 7849 West Gratz Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83709, and 422 South Auto Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83709, and parcel number S111314190, parcel number S111314190, and parcel number S111314190, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance, and adjacent rights of way from MX-3 mixed use active to MX-2 mixed use general, setting forth a reason statement in support of such zone change and provide an effective date.
Thank you. And now second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading be read. That all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by name and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 4-26, an ordinance CAR 25-18 for property located at 2911 North 5 Mile Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way from R-1C residential traditional to R2 residential compact, setting forth a reason statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 5-26, an ordinance amending Boise City Code BCC Title I, Chapter 14 to rename the chapter City Records and Archives, amending existing definition and add new definitions, adding references to historic records and artifacts throughout the chapter, establishing the city archives, clarifying the role and responsibilities of the city clerk regarding records management and related duties, clarifying the role and responsibilities of the city archivist regarding the city archives, providing the responsibilities of city department heads, department records coordinators, and all city employees and officials regarding city records, setting forth general records requirements for all city officials and employees, clarifying the storage, maintenance, and management of city records and archives, simplifying standards regarding photographic and digital records, setting forth clearer language regarding access to city records for inspection and copying, and the associated fees, removing redundant language that restates provisions of the Idaho Public Records Act or are otherwise unnecessary or moved to different code sections within the chapter by repealing and striking from code the following sections. BCC Section 1-14-3 entitled Policy, BCC Section 1-14-8 entitled City Offices to Use Record Schedules, BCC Section 1-14-10 entitled One-Time Destruction of Obsolete Records, BCC Section 1-14-11 entitled Archives, BCC 1-14-12 entitled Preservation of Permanent Records, BCC Section 1-14-13 entitled Non-Current Records Not to be Maintained in Office Files, BCC Section 1-14-15 entitled Accessibility of Records on Microfilm or Digital Media, BCC Section 1-14-16 entitled Public Disclosure of Licensing Records, renumbering the subsequent code sections accordingly, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, moving on to ORD 7-26, which is on first, second, and third reading. I move that all rules of the council interfering with the immediate consideration of ORD 7-26 be suspended, that the portions of Idaho Code Section 50-902 requiring an ordinance to be read on 3 different days, twice by title and once in full, be dispensed with, that the records show that it has been read the 3rd time in full.
Second the motion.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. ORD 7-26, an ordinance granting to Intermountain Gas Company and Idaho Corporation its successors and assigns an exclusive franchise for its gas utility within Boise, such utility defined as the construction, installation, and improvement, extension, maintenance, and operation, removal or abandonment in place of the natural gas transmission and distribution system to furnish, transmit, distribute, and sell gas, whether artificial or natural, mixed or otherwise, for heating, domestic, industrial, and other purposes, approving the franchise agreement that provides the terms and conditions of such franchise, providing for a waiver of the reading rules, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, I move that ORD 7-26 be approved.
Second.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And now we've got a purchasing brief. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For everyone else, all the rest of City Council, my name is Sarah Schaefer. I'm with the Public Works Department. I'm a senior project manager. I'm here today to request the award of the decision for RFQ 2026-11. It's the Fire Training Center Phase 2 for the Public Works Department. We received 3 proposals with this call and evaluated based on criteria laid out in all of the documentation sent out to those that responded. Please note that in the original upload of the memo that we had provided some information that was switched. Everything that you see before you tonight should be in the correct order, but we had Rice Fergus Miller with 580 points. We had Pivot North with 560. I'm going to say that's 3. I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses. And we have Cole Architects with 430. And I will stand for any questions that you may have in regards to this RFQ.
You any questions for Sarah? All right, in this case, the council will need to make a motion, and I'll take a motion, then any discussion.
Madam Mayor, I move to award the purchasing brief from RFQ 2026-11 for the Fire Training Center Phase 2 Architectural Services to Rice Fergus Miller.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and second discussion.
Madam Mayor, I'll just add, thank you so much for bringing this to us, Sarah. I know that there's a lot of work that goes behind these recommendations, so appreciate the clear outline of the scoring process. Thank you for that.
All right, clerk.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we're moving into subdivisions. With these, I tend to have staff do a report, check in with the applicant to see if you're in agreement with the terms of and conditions of the staff report. If so, I'll bring it back to council for a motion and we can move on. For the first up, Madison, hello. We've got SOS 2510.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is a partial vacation of a plat note and easement from the Erie Canyon number 11 subdivision located at 4753 and 4759 North Accipiter Place in the residential large lot with hillside and wildland urban interface overlay zone. The applicant requests to vacate plat note 10 and the easement of a 5-foot wide drainage easement on either side of the shared property lines of lots 15 and 16 of block 8 in order to consolidate the two parcels. As detailed in the project report, agency comment was received from Public Works, Hillside and Drainage in support of the partial plat note and easement vacation. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval and I will stand for any questions.
Thanks, Madison. Any questions for staff? No. Now on this one, I think we might have had some confusion from attendees. Do I see the Harrises and the Kleins in front of me? Are you all here to talk about this one in Erie Canyon? You're here for another one, right? That's what I thought based on your address. Okay, perfect. You're here for the Dan Stout one on Milwaukee? Milwaukee, okay. Is anybody, just before we move on to the applicant, is anybody here to testify on this item in Erie Canyon? All right, I'm going to check. The applicant is wonderful. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Great. I'll have the record reflect that's the case. Any further questions? Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a motion on this one.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the request to vacate the plat at 4753 and 4759 North Accipiter. Is that okay? Thanks. Please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we've got Madison is again covering. This is the Boise City vacation of a plat note on Skillern Drive. Great. Okay. The notes here said we didn't expect public, so I just want to make sure. So in this case, this one will be a little different. We'll hear from staff. We'll hear from the applicant. Council will ask questions, and I'll open it up to the residents that are here to speak. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the item before you is a plat notification of a rear setback on 0.196 acre lot at 2407 South Skillern Drive within the residential traditional with airport influence area overlay zone. The Milwaukee subdivision was created in 1975 and annexed into the city of Boise in 2013. In vacating the platted rear setback, the rear setback will revert to the standard R1C rear setback requirement of 15 feet. This will result in an extra 10 feet of buildable area. The surrounding area of the site is zoned R1C. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval. Now stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff? All right, is the applicant here? Dan Stout, come on up. Welcome. Good
Good
evening.
evening.
I do agree with the recommendation, of course.
Great. I'll just see if there's any, does council have any questions for the applicant?
Madam Mayor, yeah. Thank you for coming up here today. I had a question on, it looks like you're looking to build an ADU in the yard. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Is there, is this not accessing, having vacation of this note of 25 feet will prevent you from building that ADU in your yard?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now I'll go through this list. I've got Tanya Harris. And then next up is Barbara Klein and Lori Thompson. But come on up. Yeah, I'm just letting you, just so you know, so that Barbara and Lori know they're on deck.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council
Tanya, will you?
members.
Perfect. Great.
My name is Tanya Harris, and I am a resident and neighbor of the property located at 2407 South Skillern Drive. I am here to express my concerns regarding a trailer or mobile home that is on this property. The structure in question encroaches into the required 15-foot setback for R1C zoning. It has been on the lot for a number of years in a dilapidated condition, and recent improvements such as installing a new roof, which has created an even greater encroachment, have begun without any indication of proper permits. I want to emphasize that under Boise City Code for R1C zoning, all structures, including trailers or mobile homes used as rental units, must meet minimum setback requirements. Improvements to a structure do not legalize a non-compliant placement. The request of the applicant does not meet the legal standard for a variance. The hardship is not caused by the land, nor is it unique. It is a self-created condition which is explicitly not grounds for a variance. Approving this would set a precedent, allowing setbacks to be waived whenever additional units are desired. I respectfully ask that you uphold the zoning code and deny this variance. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Tanya, can I ask you
Tanya.
a question? Yeah. Great, thank you. I'm really familiar. I walk around here all the time. This is my neighborhood as well. I just had a question. Are you saying that there's a current outer building that's not meeting code compliance?
Yeah, it's been there for some time.
Are you saying that because it's within the setback? Is that what's not meeting the code compliance there?
It is within the setback. It's not been used. I think it was brought into the neighborhood within the last 10 years and placed there. And yes, it is not within the setback requirements currently.
Okay.
And can I bring up a question also? Is that, I don't know how this works.
Yeah, well, the council doesn't answer questions, but
okay.
what I would recommend is if you do have questions, particularly around code compliance, you connect with our staff and they can help you connect with the right person.
Okay. Did I answer your question?
You did,
properly?
Tanya. Thanks so much for coming out too. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. All right, Barbara.
I live right across the street from this. I live right across the street from this 2407 and 2406, and it's an old trailer, two old trailers, I think about the 1970s. And when we tried to put a 3-car garage on our property, they wouldn't let us because they made us tear out the forms for the third garage. And because it was a little over 15 foot. So I don't think that's building, I mean, he's not building a building, he's building a roof over the top of 2 trailers, 2 mobile homes. And this is only a residential for one family, I think, for a family. So he wants to rent it out. So, I just don't think it's going to be a very good looking on my property. I take care of it, so.
Thank you. I'm looking at the map. Are you across Skillern from the?
I'm right on the corner
You're on the
of
corner.
of
Okay.
Milwaukee and Skillern,
Great.
across the street from them. They're on Skillern and Milwaukee. So
Thank you.
So.
Very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lori Thompson. Nope. Okay. All right. Well, you're marked as opposed, so we have that for the record. Ken Harris. And then we've got Dan Stout. And then John, is it Brecken? Nope. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm here just to support my wife's information. I agree that this vacating the setback seems, I don't know if it's the cart before the horse or vice versa, but it seems like vacating something for a non-compliant, just a mobile home seems silly. Like, is it going to be a shed? Is it going to be a second residence on that lot? What is it going to be? What are you vacating that variant for? I guess that's the purpose I'm here for. Is just maybe I should have called them first.
I think that'll be a question that the council asked staff.
Oh, okay. So that's that's all I had.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, quick question. Okay, so just to clarify, so in regards to just removing the easement on the setback isn't so much as the concern is what's going to be there. Is it going to be a roof over 2 trailers or is it going to be a new place? So that's really that concern.
Yeah. What's going to happen after?
What's going to be there? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else here from the public to testify on this item? All right. Yep, you'll get to have your rebuttal, but first I'll see if council has any questions for staff.
Yeah, I do have a question. So I guess that as we've heard here, we're not quite sure. It looks like the application is just strictly to remove this 25-foot setback, which will default to the R1C setback of 15 feet. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is correct. With an ADU, if the applicant chooses to propose an ADU, they will have to come in with a zoning certificate, which is reviewed administratively. At that time, staff would be looking at the setbacks. And with this vacation, if approved, they would be allowed to have a 15-foot rear setback.
So I've got a procedural question. Is this something they have to do before they bring you an application for an ADU?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, if they want the 15-foot R1C standard setback, that is correct. This must be vacated before.
And just one other procedural question. No construction can take place in the setback without coming back for approval?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is correct.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, so just to follow up, if we have a trailer or an item that is in the setback or does not conform to our code, how would that be reviewed within the ADU application?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, if there is if the structure that they are proposing is located in the setback, it will have to come up to current code, complying with whatever the setback is, either on the plat or the R1C setback.
And just for clarification, does our code allow to have 2 trailers with just a roof over the top of them?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, it depends on you can have multiple accessory structures on a property. They must comply with building code and setbacks.
Okay. Yeah, understanding this is just for setbacks and that would be coming through an application. Okay, thank you.
Questions for you got one?
Madam Mayor, if I can just get a clarification. So if for the ADU, it sounds like there's 2 trailers on the property. One of those is designated as the main home, and then the ADU would be limited to 70% of that square footage. So is that kind of what we're looking at in the future?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is correct. The ADU square footage will be reviewed with that subsequent zoning certificate, which is allowed up to 900 or 70% of the square footage of the primary home, whichever is smaller.
And then Madam Mayor, manufactured homes could be an ADU
Madam
as
Mayor,
long as
members.
it's smaller.
Yep, Madam Mayor, members of the council, that's correct.
All right, come on up for your rebuttal. I think you probably see there's some questions about intent, if this is approved, so I'd suggest answering those too.
Sure.
Great.
Okay. So we've been working with.
Will you
city-
please talk into the mic just so
Oh.
that others that might be watching can hear? Thanks.
Okay, how's that?
That's good.
Okay. We've been working with city staff for close to 2 years, and this is one of the steps they wanted us to take. So this plat note vacation, it's 25 feet now. It just seems to be this pocket sub, whatever it turned out to be. But I do want to note that 2406, 2408, 2419, 2427 already have structures inside that 25-foot existing setback. So I don't know if they were permitted. I don't know what was done with those, but they are already on there. So now we have to build an ADU, and it has to comply to all the standards of firewall. It'll be a common roof. They may make us separate it, but they're talking now that as long as we put a firewall in there, and we're adding a garage too. We also had a neighborhood meeting. I don't remember when that was, last fall, and the only people that did show up was Barbara. And we did all the thing, and she's seen what's going to happen with that. So I don't know if that answered more of your questions.
Great, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, Madam Mayor. So to confirm, there's 2 trailers there today.
The existing residential structure, and there is a manufactured home there that we have worked with code compliance over the years, and it is in code compliance.
So it's been moved in there, and that's what we're looking
It
to.
was moved in there.
Okay,
yes.
and that's what you're looking to bring forward as an ADU for the property. Is that correct? Okay.
The 2 structures will be married together, and then they have to be re-sided and re-roofed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Great, thank
I'm
you.
going to close the public hearing. I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the request to partially vacate the rear building setback plat in the Milwaukee subdivision located at 2407 South Silkern Drive.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All righty, let's move to discussion.
Madam Mayor, I'm supporting this motion tonight for a couple of reasons. What's before us tonight is to take a look at vacating the plot from a 25 feet to a 15 feet. Our code supports today for a 15 feet for that zoning, and it falls right within those parameters. As far as what the future look of the ADU and what's happening, that is being reviewed in a separate procedure with the applicant and with the planning team with the city of Boise.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
I'll also add I think if there are other incompliant properties with structure non-compliant, thank you. With structures in the setback, I think that there's a couple different things it might have been something that was approved prior to the zoning code that we have today. But you can always, I think, reach out to code compliance for them to take a look at that if that's something that you wanted to follow up on. But it could very well be that it was approved before we had these rules about the setbacks and things like that, just depending on when it was built. And there are many more steps in this process for the ADU to be approved and to move forward with building. And so there are some other steps that would be taken administratively just between the staff and the applicant. But they won't approve anything that is prohibited within the code, which is that 15-foot setback.
All right. We can't take questions, but I'm going to ask, is there any further discussion? So I'm gonna have them vote, and then Josh, will you raise your hand? If you'll look over there, you can see Josh. He can probably answer questions that you've got, also connect you with code compliance, code enforcement if you need to. And thank you for coming tonight. Yeah. Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss. All in favor, motion carries.
All right. Yeah, I'd suggest you connect with Josh and he can explain more of the process. Thanks. Okay. We now have one more subdivision. Is anybody here to weigh in on the Pax Haven subdivision? All right. So Ben, we'll just do the usual. Great. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, City Council members, the item before you is a preliminary and final plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 3 buildable lots on 0.28 acres located at 2233 South Leadville
We'll pause
Avenue.
just for a second. If you all are wanting to jump up, you're welcome to. Oh, we'll be here for a while. Yeah. So I don't want you to feel like you're being rude by getting up. So we'll just pause for a second so that you can do that. Thank you all for being here. All right, go ahead.
Would you like me to restart?
Nope, you're good.
In a residential compact zone. The proposal is for an infill development. As conditioned, the submitted subdivision plat conforms to the minimum dimensional standards in the R2 zone. A 5-foot wide detached sidewalk will be installed, resulting in 90 feet of detached sidewalk in the area. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Anybody have questions for Madison? All right, I'll check in with Ben. Are you in agreement with terms and conditions? Great, the record will reflect that the applicant agrees. I want to confirm nobody's here, and I'll go ahead and close this and take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of SUB 25-91 for the Pax Haven subdivision, a preliminary and final plat of 3 buildable lots in an R1, R2 zone.
The second the motion.
We have a motion, a second. Discussion? Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Alrighty, now we'll move into the regular public hearings. First up, good night. We've got CAR 2520. Just want to make sure. Is anybody here for this one? This is on Fairview Ave. All right. We've got Madison again. You've got a lot tonight, Madison. And then the applicant, is the applicant here, Thornton Byron? Welcome. We will go ahead and hear from staff, and then I'll check in and see if there's any questions for you.
Madam Mayor and City Council members, the application before you is a modification of an existing development agreement on 1.96 acres at 10990 West Fairview Avenue in a mixed-use active with development agreement zone. On January 12th, 2026, the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the development agreement modification and approved a conditional use permit to expand a legal non-conforming use beyond 20%. As detailed in the project report, as a result of a property line being adjusted, the development agreement must be updated. The applicant is requesting to modify the development agreement to align with the new property boundary. Additionally, the applicant is proposing to update the zones listed within the development agreement to align with the current MX3 zone. No other modifications are proposed, requested, or conditions. The changes are highlighted on the screen. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Other questions for Madison? All right. I'll check in with the applicant. Are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? We'll have the record reflect that the applicant agrees. Want to double check nobody's here for this one? Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll close the public hearing and take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of CAR 25-20 at 10990 West Fairview Avenue.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and second discussion.
Madam Mayor, I'm just going to make an assumption that there's a lot of work and a lot of steps it takes to actually go through and change each and every single one of these things. So appreciate your patience working with that, and just want to thank staff for continuing to work to, get this right. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Clerk?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Doug is now up. Welcome, Doug. So this is the appeal of CUP 2523. I have one person that's signed up, and Anna. Are you Anna? Hi. And then are you the applicant? Okay, wonderful. So we'll hear first from our staff, and then Anna Canning, the applicant, for the decision. Is anybody here to testify on this beyond the applicant? The airport, the director of the airport is here. We'll have you head up. I don't know how this works. 3 minutes? She's a commenting agency. Oh, okay. I need a second. All right. Sorry about that, Rebecca. Rebecca Hubb is here. She was sitting earlier with an applicant on another property. I'm going to ask you to come over here to be with staff, because what we will do, because you're a commenting agency and you're part of the city, we'll hear first from Doug and then from the airport, all in one, so it's clean and clear that this is the city. And then we'll hear from the applicant. Right. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Before you tonight is an appeal of a conditional use permit to exceed the density of 5 units per acre within the airport influence area B1, located at 2701 South Pond Street. The standard for CUP appeals are shown on screen. The CUP was denied at the December 1st, 2025 Planning and Zoning hearing, with an appeal application submitted on December 9th, 2025. As a reminder, the subdivision application and variance applications associated with this are not part of this appeal process currently. For some background, a conditional use permit is required to exceed the permitted density of 5 units per acre within the airport influence area B1 on a case-by-case basis to address to address impacts of airport operations. The 65 DNL contour does cross the subject property, which will be discussed later, but is unique to this property as not all B1 properties have the 65 DNL contour. The first appeal ground references that the 65 DNL contour was granted too much weight in staff analysis, and there are no standards tied to the contour. The subject property is an incompatible land use as seen within the 2020 noise exposure map shown on screen. The 2020 airport master plan documents reference the 65 DNL contour, and the noise compatibility program also references the 65 DNL. The second ground for appeal cites alignment with housing goals of the city. The appellant claims they did not know about the 65 DNL contour until November 25th, 2025. And lastly, the Hillcrest neighborhood plan does conflict with the development code standards. The 65 DNL contour was discussed at the October 18th, 2024 concept review meeting, which is also included in the project packet. Both the neighborhood plan and Blueprint Boise are guiding documents used to inform development. Blueprint Boise speaks greatly about protecting the Boise airport operations, which is discussed in the project report. Lastly, the project still could be developed with 3 additional homes to comply with the requirements of the airport influence area. The FAA uses the 65 DNL as an area to distinguish where impacts to noise and noise from airport operations are considered significant, and grant assurances do require appropriate zoning practices to ensure compatibility of uses near the airport. The purpose of the airport influence area overlay is shown on screen, which includes compliance with federal guidelines. There was discussion at the December 1st Planning and Zoning Commission meeting regarding the application before you tonight within the blue circle, and a project approved off of Maple Grove shown in the white circle. While both properties are within the airport influence area B1, a distinction is the presence of the 65 DNL contour between the 2 sites. This is an example of the case-by-case nature of the CUP to exceed the density within the airport influence area B1. In conclusion, the planning team recommends denial of the appeal, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we also have the airport.
Thank you. Questions for Doug?
Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Doug, thank you very much. So on this, we kind of have two different things. We have the area influence overlay that gives us the B1 zoning, 5 limitations, I guess you'd say 5 units per acre. And then we have the noise contours, which thank you for talking about how unique this is, kind of splitting this lot at the 65 DLN. And so that noise contours impact, can you talk a little bit more about that noise contours impact on a B1 zone? What is in code in terms of limitations, and kind of what is guidance that we have from, could be FAA or whatnot, what in terms of what development looks like in that piece?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, I think a lot of those questions can be answered more accurately by Rebecca. However, within the comprehensive plan, it does adopt the guiding documents of the airport by reference. So when looking at projects in the airport influence area, it is within the purview of the comprehensive plan to also look at those guiding documents of the airport. And with the FAA, they do use that 65 DNL as kind of that distinguishing, demarcation of airport, operations are impacting it greatly versus not. So that is where my playing team looked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Happy to be here and answer specific questions. If I could just maybe take a step back in time and talk about B1 in general. So the B1 area was developed in zoning to recognize the fact that when the city council originally adopted its zoning, there was already housing located in these areas. And that's why we have housing in this area known as B1. The B1 area that is within the 65 decibel contour is an area and a designation where FAA has deemed that area not compatible with residential. And so that's the distinction. And the reason the council at the time, based on my understanding, because I was not here, adopted B1, it was a recognition of property rights and wanting to make sure that things were similar and that we maintained neighborhoods in neighborhood areas, but not allow substantial density. And so 3 was the magic number, and that has been increased to 5. But anything beyond that would be against what the city council has adopted as its zoning. And so allowing a conditional use permit in this area would be contrary to what council has already adopted and would not be recommended for a conditional use, again, because this area is significantly impacted. I would note that we do regularly receive complaints from neighbors who live in this area related to noise and just general disruption from the airport. And insulation can fix some things, but it cannot fix everything. And so that is the reason that within this area, we really hold fast to that specific designation.
Madam Mayor, follow up. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you talking a little bit about that. And I would tell those people that are calling about noise to stop. I live under flight pathway too, and we've lived there for 13 years and love it. But I just want to ask a little bit more about the 65 DLN that this is in, DNL that this is in, because this is a little different than projects that come before us with B1, where we do have the ability to increase density with CUP. And so when I'm looking at that piece of this property, I'm wondering if the airport considers, future development on this property, that corner that is within that contour as being really shouldn't have any housing on it. If you can just kind of clarify that, or if it should just be within the current 5 units per acre. And yeah, I guess I'll just ask that question first.
Well, and I'll remind the council that we picked this up in terms of the appropriate densities in this area and then other areas around the airport. So Rebecca can answer that from her perspective, of course. However, the council just recently weighed, I'm sorry, I never look at you guys. It just recently weighed the information from the airport, recommendations from planning staff, and made density designations in the different colors and like at different densities around the airport.
There certainly are competing priorities that we have to recognize. In an airport perfect world, we would not have residential housing in this impacted area around the airport. That said, we live in reality where there is a need for housing and also where there is housing that already exists prior to the zoning that was adopted. And so we have to work within those constraints. So, to your question, the 65 DNL, again, the designation is that it's not compatible for residential or noise sensitive uses. So also we would not recommend, for example, a school in this area or a daycare, nursing home, other things that would be noise sensitive. It's not just residential, but it's not compatible. It's more compatible for what we would expect to see for industrial, commercial, agricultural. So this is ultimately a decision that the council has to weigh. But I think as we look at complying with our federal regulations and our grant assurances, what the FAA is looking at doing is making sure that we're complying with our own rules and ordinances to make sure that we're preventing encroachment from around the airport.
Madam Mayor. So just maybe a little more detail on that. So if there was denser development allowed here or any residential development allowed here, the negative consequences are certainly there's some health impacts to the people that are living there. But to go beyond what we've set forth in code, you talked about some of those consequences. Can you outline those just a little bit more? What happens if you are out of compliance or you're doing things that are out of compliance? What risk does that pose to both the airport and the city?
When the city and the airport specifically accepts federal dollars for capital infrastructure development, we agree to certain conditions of accepting those grant funds. And one of them is that we will protect the airport from future non-compatible development and encroachment. And so every time we sign to accept money from the FAA, we're saying that we will uphold our own rules and regulations as it relates to development around the airport.
And I guess the negative consequences then, if you don't, like, you aren't able to sign stuff in the future, like what are the consequences?
The negative consequence would be, well, I think first and foremost, the negative consequence would be you would have density in an area where you don't want to have density. Yep. And we will have more and more complaints about noise. Just to put it in perspective, I've probably received about 20 noise complaints this month from a community that doesn't even live anywhere near the 65 DNL. So recognizing that people are sensitive to noise both within and outside of the 65 DNL. I think that's the first and foremost thing that we need to recognize. And then, yes, it will create a situation where we are at conflict with our neighbors. And ultimately, if it became a serious enough problem, FAA would look to the city for why we are not enforcing our rules around zoning. To put it in context in terms of dollars, this year we expect to receive about $75 million to reconstruct our runway.
Awesome. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Yep. Could we take a look at the contour map? And then Rebecca, I have a question for you. So in this discussion here, Rebecca, we're talking about, we don't want to jeopardize our federal dollars. I mean, it's a significant amount for maybe a few other houses. But when you talk about if we'd rather not have this housing be there, if we had our druthers, if it wasn't already there, is that just within, or do you mean within the B1 or within that 65 DNL?
Certainly within the 65 DNL. And many years ago, again, before my tenure, and I've been here almost 14 years now, the city and the airport actually acquired properties because they were within a noise sensitive area. So we do have a history of acquiring properties to ensure compatible land use. And when you look at some of those areas, we have very little housing that is actually within the 65 DNL, which is very favorable, and we want to maintain that. And so, yes, in the past, we have actually, I would say it would be fair to say, if we had our way, we wouldn't want to have any housing. That would just be a best practice. That's not realistic. Right. But in the past, we have actually acquired housing and property to prevent housing from being developed within the 65 decibel contour.
Follow, Madam Mayor, Rebecca, have we looked at any other properties outside that 65? Are we concerned about the 70 or the 75 DNL?
So the loudness goes up the higher the decibels. So the 70, certainly within the 65 and 70, within the 70, we own most of the property within the 70 DNL. Within the 65 DNL, we own a substantial portion of it. Many of the homes that are there have avigation easements. And then as you go further out with it to 60, the noise impact, that's not to say that people aren't going to hear airplane noise. They are going to hear airplane noise. And if they're sensitive to noise, it is going to be bothersome to them. But the 65 is the designation where FAA determines it's not compatible with residential. But you can see on one side of the street, you can have 65 DNL, and on the other side of the street, you can have less than 65 DNL. So it's perception. We try to assign a scientific data point, just like an 89 is a B, but a 90 is an A. There's 1 point difference, but there is a very substantial difference, for example, in calculating a GPA. Same thing in the DNL. If it's 64 instead of 65, the untrained person probably is not going to be able to detect the difference between those. So a lot of it is perception. You may have grown up in an area where you grew up living next to an airport and you love it, and someone else might have a hard time sleeping at night and you would perceive the same noise differently. So it is a designation that FAA has set, recognizing that there needs to be something that's an objective criteria for something that really is very subjective.
Madam Mayor, just a quick follow-up. And last, on the, who determined or how was it measured to be 65 DNL? Was it federal government, state? Was it city?
So we hired an expert. I don't remember what the year was. 2015, I think, was the last time we updated our noise contours. And we hire a consultant, and there's a very scientific methodology that they use to do noise modeling based on flight tracks. And those get updated periodically. I would say we would expect that the airport is not going to get quieter. It is only going to get louder. And so again, as we plan for the future, we want to plan for a conservative projection as it relates to noise.
Great. Rebecca, thank you very much. I appreciate the information.
Thank you both.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you.
Come on up. And then I'll just ask that you'll stay.
Yeah. Much shorter. Madam Mayor, members of council, my name is Anna Canning. I work for Centurion Engineers, and our address is 2023 South Vista Avenue, Suite 206 here in Boise. How much time do I have?
Oh yeah, we need the clock up there. It's 10 minutes, right?
I might need more than 10, just given all the new information that was discussed.
Well, the 10 minutes is what we allow applicants, correct? Yeah.
Is that it? All right.
But what you do have also is, I mean, because the information the 10 minutes is what we allow applicants, and then after you'll get questions, I know, so you'll have more time. And then at the end, you'll also get a rebuttal period.
Okay, great. And I think staff has a presentation for me. Oh, there it is.
And then, and you got the clicker.
There we go. Okay, great. Again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing this tonight. This is an appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission for CU to allow more than 5 units per acre. I'm going to start with a brief description about the project, just so you know what this appeal is related to in the context. Then I'll talk about 2 different sets of standards. And then I'm going to talk about confusion, because there's a lot. And I'll continue with the discussion on density. And finally, I'll discuss the developer's commitments. So first, I wanted you to see the plat. So this is the plat. It's just 7 units on a private street, with the home is on the east end there, just off of Pond Street, called Koi subdivision. And site's about 0.9 acres, making the density 7 units per acre. The lots are just under 3,000 square feet each. And the plan is to build single family homes with single car garages. So it's kind of a unique housing type for this area. It is because of the small house size and the single car garage, it's going to be naturally more affordable to more people because it's a small unit. Property is zoned R2, which does not have a maximum cap on density. 2 properties to the south are developed at about 14 units per acre, so a lot more dense. We had 2 neighborhood meetings and no one was opposed to the application. So I wanted you to just see what these units are going to look like. Pretty cute with their little 1-car garages, I think. They're narrow, 2-story, fit on those lots. This is the plat with that forecasted 65 dB contour. So you see that there's just impacts 2 of the lots over on the corner. And actually, it's less than 6,000 square feet of area devoted to residences is within that 65 decibel line. It's only 15% of the site. All right. So next I'm going to talk about seemingly 2 separate sets of standards. And the one is the overlay district, which I'm not going to read the whole thing. You know that it's a 30 decibel sound attenuation or insulation, and then also the requirement to come to you with anything over 5 units per acre. But I do want to point out these are recent additions to your code. And there is no mention of the 65 decibel line at all in them. And that becomes important later. I'll get to that when I kind of talk about my brief understanding of the FAA guidelines. The second document is the 2020 Airport Master Plan update. And this is a policy document, as staff said. It's a guidance document. It is not code. It was kind of elevated to code in the analysis. Based on the discussion of FAA guidance and the threat of not meeting the grant assurances. The map that is in that document is based on the 2015 study that was done. So the real noise contour map is from 2015. The 2020 map that is continually referenced with regard to this property are forecasted noise levels that were done 6 to 7 years ago based on future land uses. You know, your land uses have changed. Development around the airport has changed. There's 2 huge concrete structures that you spent a lot of money on that are probably attenuating some of the sound. They do have more traffic going through the airport. We don't know at all what those noise contours are at this point. It's been far enough out, over 10 years, that, yeah, they probably have grown, but have they grown to clip 6,000 square feet off of this property? Who knows? Maybe the whole property's in it, maybe none, but we don't know. The real noise contour map is the 2015 noise contour map. That are the studied contours. That, I think, is very important. Next, I'll talk about confusion. First of all, I owe Mr. X an apology. I said, you never told us about this 65 decibel line. What the heck is this? And he's proven that, yes, we did, you know, or they did. They told us twice, if not more times. But the way it was said, and, you know, looking back, I now remember every time I saw it, I thought that that's a weird way to say that we're in the overlay district. I just didn't understand it. There wasn't enough context. I didn't ask enough questions, or we didn't ask enough questions. So we missed it. We didn't understand that the 65 decibel was something different. And I want to apologize for that. So that's the first point of confusion. Although I'll say, I listened to the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. I wasn't there, but I listened to the tape. One of the commissioners made the same mistake. Staff was very good and corrected them, explained the whole thing. Not 3 or 4 minutes later, another commissioner made the same mistake. And staff again went through, and I thought, well, at least, you know, they're pretty bright people. So maybe I wasn't too stupid in missing it. So, so that's the first point of confusion. The second point of confusion is that unfortunately during the hearing, I think Mr. Exton got a little confused and kind of gave them a little bit wrong information. Chair Danley asked about, well, are all these properties, it's this distinction between the airport's non-compatible, I'm going to run out of time on this, non-compatible issue, and then the term non-conforming uses, right? So he asked, are all these residences that are in this overlay district going to be now non-conforming uses? And the answer was, and this is paraphrasing so I can break it down, that area C, they're non-conforming. And that's very true. Code specifically says, if you have a house in area C, it's non-conforming. Basically, it needs to go away. In area B, if it was established prior to the adoption of code, it's legal non-conforming. That's not true. Unlike area C, there's nothing said about B. Presumably, it's so that people can invest in their properties and continue to live there. Yeah, it's noisy. I live in area B, I think. I don't mind it. And then any residential in area B1 that exceeds 5 units per acre would be considered legal non-conforming. That's not true at all either. Once you have a conditional use permit, you're legal, right? You're not non-conforming anymore. You have a conditional use permit. Also, residential is still a use in B1, so there's no reason that it would be considered. So why is this important? The commissioners after this started talking about sticking with code, per code. Well, a conditional use permit is per code. It is sticking with code. I think they started to feel like this was more of a variance because you were getting something special. You're not, it's per code. Okay, density. City's given them a lot of latitude, yourself a lot of latitude in determining density. From what I can tell, the 5 units per acre is not a magic number. It's just a threshold by which you can determine if the project is suitable. Staff has said that you should only consider the 65 decibel line really, but I think there's other things to consider. One, is the 65 decibel line really there? And even if it is there, there's only 6,000 square feet in that area. The density we're proposing is half that and could potentially be much higher. And I wanted to briefly show this. There's little pink dots all over that show the density there, but you can see the kind of apartment style structures that go to the south. So the density is much higher there. All right. Finally, the developer commitments. Staff report kind of implies that we wouldn't offer additional mitigation. We didn't know we were expected to. I was going by code. Code had the insulation requirements. We didn't think we needed to offer anything additional, so we apologize for that. We really have done what we can as we went through this. We went through lots of layouts to try and work with staff. So I think they'll tell you we have been cooperative all along. I did read FAA Grant Assurance 21. One of the things that they said would be appropriate to limit with regard to zoning ordinance amendments is lighting. I think that we can say we won't do any direct uplighting with this property. And then also understanding that it may be in a louder area, we're willing to give more insulation. And finally, I thought navigation easements were required, but perhaps they're not. I have 16 seconds to go through the summary. So I am hoping, here we go, speed talking. Reasons you should approve this appeal. The Planning Commission was mistakenly informed that residences would be considered legal nonconforming. The 2020 map is forecasted contours, not actual contours. This has been elevated to existing contours in the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing and this hearing as well. The city has ability to establish appropriate density for the property through the conditional use process. And our client is offering additional mitigation through restricting uplight and providing insulation and navigation easements should we need it. Whew, that was fast talking. It's a complex subject. Hopefully I hit them well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Madam Mayor, Anna, thanks so much for bringing this to us tonight. I really like these smaller single-family homes and think they're kind of missing within the city of Boise. So, yeah, I do like this. Like I said, that housing type. And can you tell me if you were denied and limited to 5 units per acre, or is this project still going to go forward?
I am not sure that the applicant had, I mean, he was adamant about going for this appeal. There was no way they wanted to just sit back and rework it. You know, his answer was immediate of, yes, we're appealing it. So my guess is that it probably doesn't pencil out with less than this.
And Madam Mayor, follow up.
Yeah.
So were they aware that the code had 5 units per acre for
Yes, they were.
this area? Okay.
We weren't aware of these magic 65 decibel line, but they were aware
of the 5 unit. Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I have a few questions, but I wanted to just follow up on to that one because I had a similar question. So I guess the answer is that you probably haven't seen any kind of pro forma on this project.
No.
Okay, great. Because generally developers come to us with the easiest, they think about what is the easiest project to get through the pencils, right? So going through this process is not easy. And so that makes sense. I think I had one clarifying question. You had mentioned that the area inside the 65 day-night average sound level area was only 15%. Did I hear you right? Looking at that site layout, it looked like more than 15%. My rough math, I thought, was a little bit more. Is that just the area that can be developed outside of the roads, or can you talk about that piece?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Morales, I'll confess I was being a little lazy. 6,000 square feet, which is about what those 2 lots are, is that percentage of the full site. So I was not counting all the roadway that's in there.
That makes sense. I wanted to clarify that. And I think that makes sense a little bit more with the math there. And then I'd just like to ask you a little bit. I think the noise contour area of this property does matter quite a bit. I think we've had projects come before us that didn't have this quirk to them. And so in looking through what planning and zoning talked about, I think there was consternation there of trying to handle competing priorities and things. I think this is kind of the sticking point here. I wondered if have you had any discussions for this application where you could fit those 7 units with outside of the noise contour area of that 65 DNL to meet what I think the FAA would prefer, meet our goal of not having any residential properties within that zoning. Has that been a consideration to this point?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, we have not redesigned to that extent. Those lots are pretty small already. You would have to go to a multifamily unit to achieve that kind of density, and that is not what this developer does. They prefer they didn't even really want to consider attached product. They really liked the detached product. They were willing to go with a smaller footprint to provide that detached product.
Okay, Madam Mayor, follow up. On that multifamily, does that count towards detached townhomes? Do they not do detached townhomes? Or is that considered multifamily in your mind? Sorry, attached townhomes.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you for questioning like that. Yeah. Attached townhomes. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, we did run by that. The challenge is the house on the front, and they didn't want to demolish it. It's kind of a cute little house. It needs some refurbishment, but they didn't want to demolish it. And because of how it sits on the lot, it has some awkward setbacks. We have to give it a backyard so it goes into the property more. So even it would make that even challenging.
Okay. And then Madam Mayor, I think this is my last. Oh no, I have one more. 2 more. So just obviously we will talk about feelings on this project, but just want to get your thoughts on if there was to be an opportunity where we approved 7 units outside of that 65 DNL, would that be preferred over nothing at all? Not granting this appeal?
Um, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, I suppose that would be preferred in that it at least allows us to go back and see. I mean, if it.
Great, thank you. And then my last question is on noise mitigation. So can you just talk about what is currently expected for these units that is kind of above and beyond what a normal build would be? Has there been any kind of discussion at that level in terms of, you talked about more insulation, but also maybe it's better windows, things of that nature. Have you had those conversations yet?
The Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, the developer hasn't gotten into the design aspects yet of those units. You know, he's waiting to see if he gets his approval, obviously. But those things you mentioned, you know, attic insulation, more insulation in the walls, additional I don't know how they do the windows. I do believe you can do windows. I don't understand exactly how that works. We just recently did an ADU and we are kind of close to the airport as well. And we sprayed the attic and oh my gosh, that made such a huge difference in quiet. And it does make a big difference.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks. Is anybody here to testify on this item? Nope. You might as well stay up there.
Okay.
But before I have you do your rebuttal, are there further questions for staff?
I'll ask one that I just thought of. Can you talk about how ADUs work in these areas? So, for example, if they did develop 5 units per acre, do each of those units, whatever that kind of number is, get an ADU?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, that is correct. Within the airport influence area B1, code does still permit ADUs to be associated with primary residential uses, such as a single family detached house.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I've got a question. I'm going to see if I can word this so that it makes sense. So I think there was a question or some discussion about the contour line doesn't cover the whole lot. In fact, most of the lot isn't within that contour line. I guess if my understanding would be is that whole lot is considered within that area because it crosses in that area. If the lot was split or subdivided and, you know, a portion of it wasn't, you know, it may not fall into that same decibel range. It is kind of an arbitrary range. We don't know if it's like one spot or the other, but part of that lot is within the 65 contour line. And by that, I guess my understanding is that means the entire lot would be considered, you know, part of that requirement.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that is correct. Yes, with the contour line, the planning team does view that as, yes, a line of demarcation with that understanding. You know, the exact location is not necessarily the most precise at this moment, given the fact that it is 2026. That being said, we would still look at that as preferring housing to be on the quieter side of that contour, and the entire property is within the airport influence area B1. So the entire property, even if it was split, would still have to go through the same process of 5 units per acre as a density with a CUP to exceed that if a property owner chose.
And thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. I'm also imagining a situation where if it did come back and if it was split and the one spot is in the 65 line, we know that that's pretty well defined. We know the other one's right next door to it. It's still going to go through a conditional use permit. It's still going to be something that we're going to have to evaluate very closely on whether or not we would still let even the portion that's not in 65 exceed that 5 units. So it's not a guarantee that if, you know, this lot was in the 64 instead of 65, that it would automatically get more than 5 units. It would still have to go through this conditional use process, and we would still have to determine, does this fit?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that is correct. Yes. One of the findings within a conditional use permit uses the same findings for this specific procedure as any other conditional use permit typically does. And one of those findings does speak to alignment with comprehensive plan. Another one speaks to alignment with safety as well and public health. So those would be things we would consider upon reevaluation if this was split or another property came in from the B1 area to exceed density. We still look at those factors. You know, and I do think in this case the proximity to the 65 DNL would still be something the planning team would consider, especially echoing what Rebecca said of just it's very close to the airport. There's a lot of noise complaints that the airport already received. So to answer your question, yes, it would still not be guaranteed.
Yeah, and then the kind of final question is, there's different types of sound mitigation that can be done to address some of the things inside the house. That goes away if a window is open, if a door is open, if a screen door is open, or something along those lines. Doesn't necessarily address the sound outside of the house as well. How do we sort of dictate, like, can they do enough sound mitigation where it solves the problem, or is the problem existing on the lot because people are both inside their houses and outside their houses?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Hyburn, I think in this case, if there were to be additional mitigation things proposed, that would be something we would probably want to work in collaboration with the airport to see if that does, kind of align a little bit more with FAA grant assurances. That being said, circling back to what Rebecca mentioned, in a perfect world, this area would not have residential. Sure. Obviously, we do have the reality we have now. So I think it would be that kind of case of the contour is there. Therefore, yes, there can be additional mitigation, provided. However, there's still the issue of the FAA recognizes 65 is where residential is no longer compatible or desired.
Great. Thank you.
All right, you've got 5 more minutes.
Okay. My rebuttal is mostly about this notion of, I guess, the airport. So the airport's there. We all know it's there. Some of us choose to live there. Some of us love living there. I love the fact that I can call home and say, we touched down, pick me up, and walk out the door, and they're there waiting. I love it. I love the fact that I can do that same thing for family members. I don't love the noise from the freeway. It is much louder than the airport. I love the fact that when I'm walking the dog down Roosevelt, all of a sudden I see a plane like this. Planes like this, just a little bit off the ground, are really cool. I mean, they just look great. So some people will choose to live here. You will always have residences impacted by the noise at the airport, unless you move the airport to south of Kuna. It's just going to happen. This noise contour will continue to grow. There will continue to be, quote unquote, non-compatible uses according to the FAA. But the FAA guidance number 21 doesn't talk about density at all. There's no limit on density. Obviously, they want to kind of tone down the noise complaints, but they don't say there's a magic density that applies. They do talk about other things. They talk about land use restrictions. So not, maybe taking vacant properties and rezoning them to commercial might be a good idea. They talk about height restrictions. They talk about lighting restrictions. They talk about waste disposal areas and smokestack locations. Those probably aren't relevant today. But there are other things that they talk about, and mostly they talk about staff working with city planning and zoning staff to move these things into the zoning ordinance, not to have this kind of situation where we're arguing where a policy line that was forecasted 6 or 7 years ago is being used as a code line. I mean, it's not code, it is policy. And whether or not that's real, the question usually on a comp plan, if a property is split by a land use designation, it goes to the larger property, not the smaller property. So if this is a policy document, do we have that same thing? Is it not split by the 65? Because this idea of the 65 decibel line and the FAA grant assurances seems to be the prevalent discussion about whether or not these extra 2 units should be allowed. I think I'm done with my soapbox.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move to deny the appeal of CUP 25-23 at 2701 South Pond Street.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I really appreciate all the great discussion and bringing this to our attention. I think these areas can get really, for me, they get really complicated really quickly when we're talking about how much density. We defer to our zoning code. We're looking at noise levels. My lens through this is regardless even of the noise level there, as I take a look at what's written in our code, and our density is the 5 units per acre. And more than that, that these are in the airport area overlay, which is, it's the airport influence overlay. And that's where we need to look at that lens, is that we got to promote development that's compatible with the safe operation of the airport. And compatible with noise levels for operations at the airport. So the lens isn't fitting the people to like the airport noise. It's the airport looking to mitigate any potential negative impact to those who live in the area. Hearing from our director that all things being equal, we probably wouldn't have development here. It gives me a lot of pause. It makes me even wonder why we'd even improve even more housing in this area. So for me, that's why I'm going to support this tonight, the denial.
Madam Mayor, I probably don't have the votes to do an alternate motion, substitute motion, so I won't be, but I'll be voting no against this motion. I think there's an opportunity here to be creative. I would have liked to have maybe seen a way to be able to, and perhaps it doesn't pencil, but a more compact development, getting 7 units within the area that's outside of the 65 DNL. And it opens up that, there's kind of that corner piece that's needed for the turnaround anyways, and would be great in an area where we need more 10-minute walk to a park coverage. Have a great little spot there in the corner. I do believe, this is next to multifamily. I want to thank our airport director and leadership have done an excellent job. They continue to do an excellent job in developing our airport. And part of that is protecting the airport. And so, as the applicant testified today, the only other option is putting it south of Kuna, and that's not an option. I want to be clear, that is not an option. That should never happen. And so we must, I think as a community, we really do need to understand we have an urban airport, and it comes with pros and cons. And I agree with the applicant that people that live in these areas, they have other options as well, right? And so they're choosing to live in these areas. No one's forcing them to buy a townhome here in this property. I would hope that, perhaps there's some more discussion this applicant can have to bring something forward. I think time is of the essence, given zoning changes may take away this process completely. I think the fact that 5 units per acre could be doubled with the ADUs anyways is an option to be considered. And I think that, this isn't too far off. I don't think anyone should be, I think we've done far, far more in improving CUPs in the B1 area previously. And if I'm correct, this property had a request already that's expired that would have been 11 units. From back when I think it was 3 units per acre was the requirement. So those are my comments kind of on this project. I wish you the best of luck.
Madam Mayor, I'll add some thoughts. I think I made the motion in large part because council recently just affirmed the density in this area in a recent policy decision. And I think it's important for us to uphold consistency in those policy decisions. And then when a project comes to us, that we can enforce the policy that we've just affirmed. Also, I think that there's some really good suggestions that came from council on maybe possible redesign opportunities, whether it's the ADUs or the lot split idea or whatever the case might be. This is generally a development that I love. We love small homes here. I think that's really is a missing opportunity, and we love that. So I hope that that there is a redesign and that we do see some iteration come back to the city. And then lastly, I feel like I don't have the authority I might have the authority, but I don't have the knowledge maybe to overrule our experts on the FAA grant assurance and with the sound. Perhaps it means, I don't know if there will be an updated sound study coming in the airport planning that's going on, but perhaps that's something that we need to revisit. I think more likely we would find out that the airport noise has grown over the last 10 years and that perhaps that line should move even further. So that might be a careful what we wish for thing. But for those reasons, I made the motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll finish this off here. Council President said it's correct. It's not going to get any quieter. At some point, maybe there'll be electric airplanes, and then we'll be having lots of different conversations, and it'll be a time to get more housing into some of these spots. One of the things I want to make sure the developers know is that by right, there is ability to develop on this property. You can do 5 units per acre. And by right, you can also apply for a conditional use permit. But there is no right that means that conditional use permit is going to get approved. And I didn't approve another conditional use permit that was much further from this. And I guess I want to telegraph where I'm at is that even if we only built on one side of that lot, we would still be having a hard decision to make right now. And whether or not this fits the conditions of a conditional use permit, we can mitigate some of those concerns, mitigate the concerns from the airport, mitigate the concerns, the health concerns and safety concerns from the people who are living there. And I'm not convinced that, if we were at 64 range instead of 65, that it would have met all those conditions today. And so I want to make sure that when people look at these types of developments and this overlay, that they know that they've got those 5 units per acre by right. It's in there. But anything beyond that is a conditional use permit. No conditional use permit is a guarantee. And if it has the ability to have a negative impact on the people who are living there or other things that we're doing in the city with the airport, those are things that we have to take into serious consideration. So I do appreciate you taking the time and to giving us, I think, really, really good testimony and explaining what you were trying to do here and what you're working with and the developer as well. And so I really do appreciate that, even if we're not ending up in the same spot here. And if you are able to come back, with 5 units per acre, I think you can have a good, development in a spot where we've permitted that to happen.
All right, I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
No.
Stead,
Yes.
Corliss. 3 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Just before that, I want to say thank you also to the applicant for being here. I hope to see you again. Really do. It was wonderful to have you in here explaining your project and appreciate what you're trying to do and with regard to homes, and do hope there was enough direction here to kind of give you a sense of a path forward. Yeah. With that, clerk. Oh, wait, no. All in favor?
Right.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.